I think I'll just so I don't forget to say anything that I was planning on saying, but we'll see how it goes. And obviously I think I'll start by explaining some projects that I've done, and then we can definitely have more kind of conversation or sort of like detour in whatever direction people want to go later on. So yeah. My name's Ruth Angel Edwards, obviously just being introduced, but so I work across a lot of different mediums, including painting, sound, sculpture, radio, quite a lot of performance. I've worked as a kind of musician, but then also, as Eleanor was just saying, so using music in more of an art context or more kind of experimental sound and sampling and things like that, or a lot of collaborative work with people who do things like spoken word or performance. And I guess in the last few years, I started to sort of bring all of those things together and make these kind of immersive installation works, which kind of almost trying to be everything at once, or I don't see them as kind of separate pieces within a room. It's more like the whole thing becomes a very total experience, which incorporates the paintings, projections and sound and objects. I look at quite a lot of different themes in my work. Definitely don't like to be too kind of tied down to specific things or have too much expectation that I will always be looking into certain things. Definitely though, that being said, there are some kind of threads or kind of approaches that I will always be quite present in my work. So that's a lot of that is kind of taking pop cultural or subcultural content and kind of reforming that into my own, to make my own narratives or kind of collaging things together to create a new message. And also, I guess, similarly to what Eleanor does, there's definitely a kind of very sort of, a lot of people say that I make quite kind of emotional work or kind of evocative of a lot of emotion. And also, I definitely make work which kind of moves between tone. So it can be, more kind of meditative or more kind of abrasive or kind of funny or serious, and kind of just moving between those tones and within one narrative. And kind of also moving between scales, so kind of sort of on a micro or sort of personal level, and then kind of with these sort of overlapping metaphors, looking into more broader kind of sort of global issues or political themes. Basically, although I work a lot in sound, I think I might play a little bit of sound at some point, but I decided that it's probably better to give a set of links afterwards, just because the sound on Zoom is never really that good. And also, just from what you were saying in the previously, Eleanor, I think sometimes when you have sound through Zoom and there's also me speaking and a lot of images, it's not necessarily representative of how you'd experience the work anyway. And also, I think it could just be a bit overwhelming and over the top and maybe not the best way of doing it.
But sometimes a shared experience is okay. So because there's a small number of us, there's 4 of us, audience, I mean, is there? I'm just making sure there is. Sorry. We can also agree, like you can ask us the question, would you like to, would you like it? Oh my goodness, I can't talk today. Would you like me to show you something, or would you prefer to see it as a link? And then, we can answer you then, because I think sometimes it's really lovely, especially during lockdown, for us to have a shared experience as well. So that's fine too. And I just wanted to say, I'm really sorry if it's distracting to you, but we don't have a captioner. Daryl couldn't get subtitles. And although none of us need them, I am going to write sometimes some notes of what Ruth is saying in the chat, just in case Sometimes, like sometimes minds can wander, or we're like, oh, what did you just say? So I'll have some little notes in the chat. But if that is distracting, just don't pay attention to chat, just pay attention to Ruth. Okay, sorry, over to you again.
Eleanor, with regard to that, if there's any point you want me to sort of stop, or that you need to kind of catch up with doing that kind of thing, just do let me know, because I don't want to be powering ahead. And
No, everything you've said so far is wonderful. I've been seeing lots of nodding heads, so it's really lovely. But I mean, how is it for you, Miss Jackie, Joe, and Sasha? Are you okay with me writing some notes in the chat box?
Yes.
Is that helpful?
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm writing notes too. So if I look down,
I
it's not
saw
that
that.
I'm
I
not.
was like, Miss Jackie can also add notes.
I like writing notes. So if I look down, it's not that I'm not interested. It's just
Yeah.
I'm taking notes.
Yeah. It's already really wonderful. Thank you.
Yeah, so basically when me and Eleanor sort of spoke previously, we thought that it could be good for me to talk about, because I sort of present what I do in quite a few different sorts of settings, and sometimes I've worked in more kind of sort of institutional settings, like a gallery with their own kind of a sort of like a known art space, and then sometimes in more underground spaces, or kind of more niche specific kind of context. So Eleanor suggested that it might be good to talk more about about one from kind of one end of the spectrum and one from the other. So if I'm going to talk about probably what's on the biggest scale project that I've done, and then we can look again at some which have been slightly different in how they've come together, and a bit more DIY. So yeah, basically the first show that I'm going to talk about is an exhibition that I did at this place called the Bonington Gallery in Nottingham. I might, if it's possible, I might just share the screen, and I can have some images up at the same time, which will give a feel for.
That's fine. Yeah, you should be able to do that.
Excuse me taking ages on this.
No, that's fine. So you click the green share screen, and then it'll take you up to like any sort of window that's open.
Cool.
And then if you're just sharing sound, because I only learned this quite recently, you have to press advanced, not basic. And in advanced, that's where you just share sound.
Okay, cool. What's going on here? Where it says whiteboard, is that the whole screen, or?
No, whiteboard is like not, but there should be another window if you've got the internet open.
Sorry, let me click on this again. So share screen.
And then it'll take you to Bonington. Well, sorry, I'm guessing that you're taking us to the Bonington Gallery. But you should have like a window up.
Oh yeah, it's got a Google Chrome window up, and I can click on that and I'll share that. Okay.
Yeah.
Normally I've that's got it where you can show the whole desktop, but that's not coming up. But maybe this is not a problem.
Oh wow.
Okay.
And then for people who don't like their whole screen being engulfed in something, you can go up to view options and just press exit full screen. You still get the same experience. You're just not completely swallowed up by screen. That's in case you're a little bit, what's the word? Claustrophobic. digital claustrophobia. Okay. Thank you. Sorry. Keep going, Ruth.
Okay. So yeah, this is the show at the Bonington Gallery. That's just the main kind of homepage of my website. This should be playing on a thing. So yeah, this is a massive space. Definitely the biggest one that I've shown in. And also it was definitely kind of the most sort of resources that I've had available to me in a kind of traditional sense, I suppose. So I had a good amount of time to work on that project and to plan it. It did take quite a lot of planning. And yeah, it was definitely a massive challenge, but it was also a huge learning curve. And yeah, it was stressful at points, but very enjoyable. So basically, the kind of concept for this show is the title of the show was Effluent Profundal Zone. And that the term profundal zone comes from ecology. So the profundal zone is in a kind of body of water. It's the deepest part. So a lake, for example, it's the deepest part of the water where the sunlight doesn't penetrate. So there's no kind of nothing can live down there. So the whole ecosystem just survives on what falls down from below. And I thought that was quite a nice metaphor for some of the kind of subcultures that I'd been looking at, where people were using a lot of kind of surplus and reclaimed materials to kind of create a new sort of a new culture, I suppose, and music and kind of sculpture. And I guess, yeah, sort of a kind of reclaiming and sort of recycling and those kind of ideas. Also, the kind of the whole space was really dark. It doesn't really look that dark in these photographs because it had to be really a high exposure to get the photographs. But yeah, I guess it was like a kind of dark show in terms of the sort of some of the content and some of the sort of metaphors, but also very kind of literally dark space with a lot of projections. And it was quite kind of, yeah, it's the sort of space where you go in through the door and then you're kind of immediately a little bit disorientated because this kind of, you can't really see where you are. I think often I think a lot about the kind of installations that I make kind of they often relate to the seasons. And having previously done this kind of autumn exhibition with a lot of autumn leaves and this kind of very autumnal color palette, I wanted, this show happened in the winter, but also it kind of felt like a very wintry show. So it was very dark, quite kind of murky colors. Yeah, and kind of definitely not pessimistic, but a kind of a tone of sort of scarcity or kind of, yeah, some of these sort of ideas kind of coming through in it. I think for me, like the sort of having a kind of clear sense of color is always sort of is always a massive part of starting an exhibition or starting a work. And I like, for me, that's kind of how I identify a different place to be making a new work. So I'll kind of set out these ideas and sort of, I know I'm working with particular textures or colors, and then they'll kind of come through to sort of tie everything together. I think, I'm not sure, I could at this point play a little bit of the soundtrack, but it's up to you whether you want me to do that or not at the moment. I can also send it afterwards.
I'd love to hear some of it.
Yeah, me too.
I'm wondering if I can actually play it at the same time, but I'm not sure.
Yeah, you can.
If I...
Can you just click share computer sound in the little window? If you press share screen again, and then it'll, yeah.
Ah, yeah. Okay, cool. Ah, brilliant. Okay, so I'm going to play a section of the sound from this. Hope it's not too loud.
Sometimes our lives can be toxic. With feelings pressed upon us, our mind can become cluttered with unprocessed problems, which become poisonous to us, creating a mass buildup of pressure. The breath is the most powerful tool we have to detoxify our bodies. Through breathing, in the next 30 minutes, I hope to calm your mind, relax, and cleanse your body. You find yourself standing on the water's edge at the seafront. The sounds of the waves are hypnotic, and the more you listen, the more your breathing relaxes. As the ocean waves find their rhythm, so too does your breathing. The more you listen, relax. Close your eyes. Let your eyes sink into their sockets. Begin to breathe in and out through your nose. With your mouth closed, and your teeth apart. Let your tongue sink into the bottom of your mouth. On your next inhale, fill up your lungs as much as you can. As you are stood there, listening to the sound of the waves, seagulls fly hectically above you, as if they are thoughts moving around in your head. They slowly start to disappear into the distance, flying away into the horizon. As are your thoughts.
The prefrontal zone is the deepest body of water. Photosynthesis does not happen here because light does not penetrate it. This means that the food web of the prefrontal zone is based on materials that fall from farther up the water column. Lack of light is a limiting biological factor here. Increased pressure is a limiting biological factor. Lower oxygen levels and cold temperatures are limiting biological factors.
I actually would like to wear something really girly, and of course you can't do because you feel that sort of bloated, yucky feeling.
Yeah, you just want to wear like baggy t-shirts, just baggy clothes. You just don't feel feminine.
Which may be caused by excessive formation of intestinal gas. As gas builds up in the bowel, it will eventually leave where the anus has hiatus. The microbes in our gut form strong communities, mostly within the large intestine. So, some amount of gas or flatulence is normal. However, if your body is producing excessive gas, this is a sign that large quantities of food are going through the gut undigested. It can also be a sign of fermentation, or essentially the rotting of food within the gut. A dead body, once submerged, stays under the water until the bacteria in the gut and chest cavity produce enough gas. Methane, hydrogen sulfide, and carbon dioxide will build up, causing it to bloat and swell.
That's quite annoying.
No beginning, no end. No
center,
no center, no beginning, no end. No center, no beginning, no end. No center, no beginning, no
This could be a good place to stop if that's, or I could leave it playing for a bit. I don't mind.
I guess
Maybe I'll put these headphones on.
I guess my question would be like, how was that music played in the art piece? Was it on a loop or was it?
Okay, I may take these headphones off. Sorry, I just put the headphones in case it started feeding back. So what was that question was how was this playing in the space? So yeah, it's kind of one of the challenges of making this kind of work is that it can be difficult to get it across exactly how it was in an online thing, because obviously it's quite like a sort of elaborate technical setup. But yeah, so that's this soundtrack was sort of choreographed to with certain video and lighting. So a certain section would be with a certain section of the voiceover or the sound coming in. So for example, the bit where there's the kind of what, I don't know if it's going to come up in a minute, but where there's like a white kind of projection across the nets, that would be coming in right about now. This bit, yeah. So
we only see the soundtrack. I think like we haven't. Yeah, we've gone from the website.
Oh right, okay, yeah. This is a definitely, when I was trying out sharing on Zoom earlier, it was possible to do the whole screen on one thing, like the whole desktop, but it's not coming up now as an option. But anyway, never mind. Doesn't
I can make you host and let's see if that happens. If that.
Shall I stop the share now? Maybe I'll stop that share and see. Yeah, I mean, it's not really an issue, but it would be maybe better to have.
Well, you're a host now, so you have the power.
Excellent. No, this is very weird.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, it's not. Okay, but you were able to hear the sound. Okay, was that all coming through? Okay, or yeah, brilliant. Okay.
And what you said about, it being disorientating, what was lovely was it was in sound and as installation as well. Like, yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, what was everyone else's experience of it? Because we moved through so many different emotions and so many different like factual, then it's kind of more like girls talking, and then like it was like such a journey in such a short space of time.
I loved all the different sounds in it.
Oh, thank you. That's really good. Yeah, it's quite the full piece has got even more. So it definitely a bit of a kind of journey through quite a lot of different things.
Yeah, it sounds like it obviously when you were exhibiting it, it'd be quite immersive. So it'd have been nice to hear it in that context.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, so very immersive, and it was very much kind of triggering certain lighting or video with you know, to kind of fit with the sound.
Sorry to ask a question as well. Are they exercise bikes or
Yeah.
stuff? I've just been wondering what they are. So like,
Yeah, so there's some sculptural pieces that I made for the show.
they've
And they
got
were kind of
Oh, wow.
Did you see that? That's what I found really amazing. They're like half human, half machine.
yeah, they were kind of yeah, that one there you could kind of get on it, so you could get on two of them and sort of try. The idea was like I was trying to make them move again, because they were all these sort of simulating this kind of actions, but obviously with the exercise machinery you just have to stay put. It was kind of trying to make the walking machine walk again, or trying to make the bike back into a bike. But it was kind of, and then sort of customizing them. Yeah, that was a really fun part of the project actually. But yeah, but yeah, definitely a few things I was kind of thinking about this in terms of yeah, in terms of the things that I learned from working on this and working with this gallery in this way. Definitely sort of having more of like, quite for this was for me quite a decent budget to work with for this show, which was at the time especially kind of mad. Not something I was used to at all. So I had to sort of decide how to kind of how to make the most of that in a way that was kind of challenging what I was doing something I could not have otherwise done. And yeah, just kind of the best way of realizing something you want to make. And yeah, and also having such a massive space to fill and making it feel kind of because the previous exhibitions that I'd seen in that space, some of them were really kind of very minimal, sort of, it's very easy for things to become dwarfed by this massive space. It's very echoey as well. So kind of just making it feel really sort of, yeah, like its own world, and like there was a lot of stuff going on. But yeah, so basically what my kind of decisions around how to sort of use the resources that were available was to kind of choose to spend money on more on people than on things. So basically I paid a friend of mine, and we hired a van and we went to Dungeness, and we collected all of these nets which were being thrown away, and all of the kind of waste material that had washed up on the beach. That all came from Dungeness. And then obviously the nets became a kind of projection surface as well, which created this really nice effect. So it was almost kind of three-dimensional in parts. And we kind of suspended them from the ceiling and on these scaffolding towers. And when they had this kind of very quite high-tech sort of theatrical lighting that the gallery already had. So I really wanted to kind of hook that all up and sort of make the most of that, because it was something I'd never really worked with before. I worked with a voiceover actor for this work, who's the person speaking on the sound piece. And that was because I worked with quite a lot of voices before, but it's usually be people that I know or I have some kind of connection to, where this was like a very different experience, because it was somebody kind of very, very professional through like, you did an audition and then you chose somebody. And it was the voice that I chose was somebody who'd worked doing a lot of adverts, and she'd done things like the M&S adverts, where you kind of like really sort of iconic certain kind of female voice. So that was really good to be able to do. It was a new thing I hadn't done before. And also probably I would say the best decision looking back on working on this show was that I used quite a good, like a decent portion of the budget to pay a fee to a friend of mine who works in theatre. He actually works at the Yard Theatre, which I know you've worked with, Eleanor, before. And he's the technician there, and he also kind of does I'm not sure how you describe the kind of job title of what he does, but yeah, kind of sort of producing the technical side of theatre stuff. And so he knew how to use this thing called Q Lab, which is where you can trigger the lighting and the videos, and yeah, so I was able to kind of concentrate on the creative side and making the work. And then I knew that I had somebody who I could trust to kind of help me with the sort of technical side of it, so I wasn't panicking and kind of spend, you know, I suppose sort of wasting a lot of the time just doing all this troubleshooting and trying to do you know, panicking over technical stuff going wrong. And also he's somebody who knows my work quite well, so I definitely felt really comfortable working with him. And yeah, that was something that was really great. Yeah, I'm not sure what else to sort of.
How did your relationship with this gallery start? Like, how, you know, how did you get to do it, I suppose?
Yeah, so that's a really good question, actually. Basically, with this gallery, it's in my hometown, so I had a connection to the area, and the person who runs the gallery, he had seen something, because I put on an exhibition, but it was I think maybe I showed something, but I was more in a kind of organizing, curating role, probably a little bit somewhere close to what you do with the Magical Women project, I guess. But yeah, so I did that, and he'd attended that, and I think he knew it was a really big space and wanted somebody to be able, you know, I think he was kind of like, I know you'll do something weird. Do you want to do a show here? Yeah, but it's also quite a weird gallery, and in that it's like, it's actually in a building that's part of the university in Nottingham, so which was great because it meant there was even more facilities available through the university in terms of equipment and stuff. But yeah, it was quite yeah, I'm trying to think. So I'm going back to what your question was. So how I kind of got to do it in the first place. They approached me on this occasion, but it was definitely something where it wasn't a sort of completely out of the blue thing. I think it was something where there were crossovers between what I do and how that would be appropriate for this gallery. And also I think they were probably, it was a plus factor that I was somebody local to, well, who had a connection to Nottingham. And I think given that it was in the arts and yeah, the arts department of the university, I think, and had a connection to that, I think they were probably quite keen to promote somebody who'd kind of come from Nottingham and then moved to London and had some sort of done some art, I guess. I think that was had some sort of significance, maybe.
I think though that's already really, really helpful, especially for some of us who find like connections quite difficult. When you said connection to the area, that actually like even just now kind of helped me, you know, like with like,
Yeah.
oh yeah, you know, sometimes we always kind of look outwards and we forget about looking to where maybe we live or to where our hometown was or things like that. So already that was just a really like I don't know, simple, but sometimes we forget that because, as you said, you move to London and you keep going, and actually the biggest project ended up being back in your hometown.
Yeah,
So,
exactly. Yeah, who would have thought that? I definitely wouldn't have expected that myself either before that happened. And I think, yeah, it's definitely, also there were things about doing something in my hometown that were really, yeah, really kind of quite important in a way, and it was a really very, very memorable experience. Yeah, just mad things happened. Like one of my primary school teachers turned up at the opening, who I hadn't seen since I was a little kid, and it was really nice. It's definitely, I think I would definitely recommend to anybody to do things in their local area if they ever get the opportunity, because, or not local, like less local now where you live like currently, and also like, yeah, just like the places that you grew up and stuff, because it's just, yeah, it's always a really good experience. And often people in the area are keen to work with people who have a connection to the area as well. So yeah, definitely.
And these nets, one very last question before we move to a new project. The nets, are they actual fishermen's nets?
They are, yeah. They were kind of being thrown away, and there was just piles and piles of them. So we basically we probably half filled like a transit van with these piles of nets. And they were absolutely, because it was winter, they were just stinking, and they were wet. And then when we got them out, because we drove them all the way from Dungeness to Nottingham, so it was a really long journey. And then we had to leave them for a week in the gallery, just spread out so that they would dry, because they were kind of, they were just wet and kind of stinky, and yeah.
So was it an experience of smell as well?
A little bit, yeah. By the time it opened, it wasn't so much. Yeah, in fact, I think there's been other exhibitions that have probably been more of that experience, but more of the smell dimension going on. Because by the end, it was all much more kind of like dried out. But yeah, that was one issue actually with working in this kind of space. And I think in general, in terms of working in a more sort of set gallery space, definitely is that there's always more rules about what you're allowed to do and things like that. So it's definitely like, when I turned up with all this stuff initially, they were like, oh, we're going to have to fill out another health and safety form, because there was all these kind of like decomposing things. And but anyway, by the end, they loved it and they were really into it. So yeah, it all works out. Yeah, I think when you said before about like kind of showing something that was really underground, I think the obvious thing that I was thinking to show in relation to this was that I did an installation which was also using the nets more recently. It was at the start of this year, and that was in like a squatted building in Deptford, which was on the anniversary of Derek Jarman's death, I think. And it was a kind of Derek Jarman sort of celebratory event. So they screened a lot of his films. I don't know if people are familiar with what he did, but yeah, kind of very sort of experimental films mainly from the 80s. Yeah, kind of some of them he made this very sort of iconic punk film called Jubilee. Yeah, sort of, I'm trying to think of the best way to describe what he does, but anyway, I'm not sure how relevant that is anyway, but that's what the event was. And there was poetry, there was a lot of film screenings, and then I made this installation in the kind of main space there, but that was sort of maybe so underground that there isn't very much documentation of it or anything. I was trying to look for some earlier. I did find, let's have a look. I did find some very short clips from Instagram, so I can have a look for them. Oh yeah. Ooh. Can you see this? Is this the?
Is this the blue one? Is it?
Yeah, so there's 3 blue ones, but I'm not sure which ones I've chosen. Hold on, maybe let's do this again.
I always get lost when I have to show lots of videos, but it's a blue one.
I tried to have them ready, but
yeah. Came into the world. He was looking for something else. Came into the world. He was looking.
So to show these separately. Yeah, so there's the documentation of these is not it's not very I don't have very much of it, but yeah, unfortunately. But yeah, that was also a really nice way of showing work, but it was very, very the other end of kind of the resources kind of thing, where it was you just had to do everything yourself. They had a lot of people there to help, which was really nice. and they had some projectors and things like that, which was great, but it was very much you turn up, you put your own work up, and that's there. But it was also very well attended, and it was kind of it was quite a special event actually. So it's, I don't know, I think and also that was kind of the opposite of having a kind of health and safety forum, where it was very much literally do what you want. Here's a scaffolding tower, and you know, you can sleep here tonight if you want to do it overnight, literally that kind of thing. So
how did you find out about the opportunity for that? And I guess as well, because you know, for disabled artists, it's more about how do we like write to them or email them, or is it an application form? What is it like? How do we approach even the most underground one, you know?
Definitely. So that one, again, that was actually one where I was approached by them. But I think partly because with that one, some of the organisers were aware that I'd done this exhibition before, where I'd got all the materials from Dungeness. And Dungeness that's where Derek Jarman's house is, and kind of there was this connection there. So again, in a strange way, I guess a sort of geographical connection maybe existed between something I'd done or somewhere I'd been and the themes of this, the event that they were planning. But definitely with things like that, I do think it is, I mean, that's one of the less positive things about very underground events like that, is that even though they can make a lot of attempts to publicize them to other people and get a broad audience, they don't always get a broad audience. It can be very much kind of who knows about it, a niche kind of thing. And I would say that event did have, it was quite a diverse event in terms of who was working with them and showing things. But certainly it wasn't something that you would, if you didn't know anybody involved, you would go to. It was people who knew a friend performing or knew something about the space who went to that event.
And was it a paid event, or was it just to show the work?
No, it was no. I think they had a bar there where they gave some of the proceeds from the bar towards money that people had spent to do the thing they were doing. But yeah, it was very much, it was no entry fee to get in. There was no fee to receive from me or anyone else contributing. It was definitely more sort of, yeah, I suppose a kind of, it had a kind of community feel to it, and it was a very sort of it was a really lovely kind of social event, but it was definitely something that on a structural level was kind of very informal and DIY.
And you said like, oh, I'm really sorry that they're only 5 seconds long, but I was already completely immersed in the first one anyway. It felt like I was going down a lift into an aquarium or something. So thank you for sharing.
Yeah, I wish that's definitely one thing about this kind of event as well, is it's often the documentation that you're left with afterwards is just kind of people's phone photos or some social media or something. And I think that in that space they don't really like people taking too many photos, because it's not, well, for various reasons, I think. And I think but it just means that whereas with working somewhere like the show in Nottingham, you don't even have to think about these things. Somebody will document it, and you will end up with these brilliant photographs that you can show to other people or to other people you might work with. Whereas something like that, you kind of have to take care of that side of it yourself. So it's just kind of a different thing. But yeah, in terms of another kind of show that came together in quite a different way that I was thinking of showing in relation to this stuff, it's definitely the one that also, Eleanor, you did bring up before, or was one that you kind of initially seemed to respond to, which like quite a lot, which is the one with one of the ones with all the leaves. So I'm just going to share this screen again. So this exhibition, Unfortunately, there's no slideshow for this, so it's just going to be me scrolling down.
Ah.
So for this show, the main kind of piece, sort of centerpieces of the show were these large paintings. And I made the paintings so that they could be projected on. And they had these kind of, this was one of the first times that I used projection kind of sort of deliberately with these like painted kind of material surfaces. And they also had these smaller characters on the surfaces as well. So these they have these the eyes are kind of translucent, so that when you kind of projected from the back onto them, you could kind of, they were sort of almost animated. I'm trying to find the, yeah, so you can see that on this one how the light shines through certain parts of the material. And again, it had, well, not again, I think this is the first one I'm showing with this. So it had this autumn leaves and this rubbish from the streets. There was a GIF there, but I don't think that's working. No. But yeah, so this exhibition was at a space in London this time called Almanac, which is, it's now in Brixton, but it used to be in Bermondsey. And with this exhibition, I had worked with the same gallery before and done a residency in Italy, because they had a space in Italy as well. In fact, maybe I may as well show you some photographs from that one as well. So this was the first exhibition that I did with them in Turin in Italy. And again, I made these paintings and these kind of projections onto the paintings, which you can see probably the best in that one. And then I really wanted to develop that work more, and I'd been working more on it. And the following autumn, I basically just really wanted to show the work in London, because a lot of people had missed that the show in Turin. Obviously, I didn't really know very many people there, and it was quite a small, low-key thing. It was just like a residency with you were able to present some work at the end of it. So that was what I showed. And I'd also just done the kind of big show in Nottingham in January. And then by kind of autumn, I was thinking, quite like to show some work again. So on this occasion, I didn't have there wasn't really any opportunities to come to show immediately coming up. And I knew that I'd worked with this gallery before, and they also had a space in London, and it's quite a big space. So this time I actually approached them and I said, it's autumn again. I'd really like to show a development on this work using the leaves. I made some more works, and I've got some more ideas that I'd really like. I just really could benefit from using your space and having a show. Would you be up for it? And they were really up for it. So yeah, even though sometimes just reaching out to people asking for a show is something that people don't want to do, I think it does sometimes also work. So definitely for me, this was, yeah, it worked out in this sense. But that being said, having previously earlier that year done the show in Nottingham, which I had a lot of resources available, I had a budget, I was able to take some time off work and things like that, so that I had a lot of time to work on that piece. For this, I think it was a bit of it shouldn't really have been a shock, because I've done lots of shows without a big budget, but it definitely was, because I think because this gallery definitely sort of publicly have quite a profile and things like that. They don't actually have very much money, and there was no budget for the show at all. It was more a case of I was suggested to apply for Arts Council funding, but I hadn't given myself enough time to do that, because it was, and I had to do it in autumn because I wanted the leaves to be part of the work. So it ended up being yeah, quite an intense period where I for about a month I was just claiming universal credit and just working on this, but telling them I was looking for jobs. And then it was definitely, the whole show was made with free materials and my free time. And then I guess you can, I think that one thing about doing it in this gallery is, again, they got these quite professional looking photographs, but you can definitely tell from, this is a sound system that is mine, and it's really old. It's kind of the opposite of the kind of previous show, which had this theatre lighting and very high-tech sound equipment and stuff. But I mean, that's fine. I don't think that was, that was what it was. But
it comes with sound though, doesn't it, Ruth? Because when I watched this, it had sound.
It did. So it's quite weird. I think at the bottom here, there's normally there's a sound loop and there's an animated GIF, but for some reason it's not.
Because can I just say, when you watch this with sound, it doesn't look as creepy.
Yeah.
But now it's almost like the women look more like devils.
Yeah.
When you've got the sound playing, I was like, I don't think I remember having this experience.
It's quite on the edge of being creepy anyway, I think. But yeah, I think you're totally right. I mean, I think it might be this computer, it might be a Flash player issue. So I can put
So everyone, when you go to her website and if you click on that, well, I don't know what kind of experience you had when you saw the eyes, but I kind of was a bit like, oh, this is a bit creepy. But when it's with the music, it kind of brought up, for me anyway, memories of like my grandmother hanging washing on the washing line, because it has that sort of the sound. It's incredible. I always think as a sound artist, how sound can completely change your perception of what you're seeing. And then now us watching this without any sound, I was just like, oh, I'm not sure. I can watching this woman's eye, not having eyes. Like, yeah,
it's definitely that's so true. I put a link into the website, like the web address, into the chat. So if people do want to go at it on their computer, it'll probably come up again. I think it's just, I've got a new computer and I think it's something to do with the Flash player is maybe not installed or something. Because I think normally it's fine.
Actually really intrigued though. How did you gather all of those leaves?
I basically just recruited a load of my friends, and then we just kind of did it one evening. But it took ages, because even when you have a bin bag of leaves, it doesn't actually go that far. That took quite a while. And it's sort of the kind of thing where I just wanted there to be loads. I think it would have been better even to have even more. I think the area where the gallery was near a park, and there was loads and loads of leaves everywhere. It was really nice. So for that show, I definitely had a bit of a last minute panic with that show, where I intended originally to have something more similar to the Nottingham show, where there was these triggered projections with sound in the space, but that was the Q Lab program that we hired was too expensive for me to hire for this. So instead I used this much more kind of low tech version for a PC, and then powered the whole thing from just like a PC laptop, quite a cheap one. But I wasn't really able to kind of get that all ready in time for the show. So then I decided to do a separate thing at the end, where for the final weekend there was the photographs that you see with the kind of orange light from the projections. That was during the final weekend, where there was a very more simple pared down sound loop playing in the space when the lights were on for the most part of the exhibition. And then for the final weekend, there was this more immersive kind of projections and like a sort of darker space with the kind of the lighting from the projections instead, and a more kind of elaborate sound piece that was more of a narrative.
Do you let like do you let people engage with the art, as in like touch the material, or like almost like a labyrinth, kind of like a sort of passageways or things, or like how, or is it just like installation and people just can just move around?
Yeah, I think, yeah.
Like with the leaves, could people have kicked the leaves and maybe even lain in the leaves, or
Yeah, no,
anything
definitely.
that was like walking on the leaves, the crunchiness and the sound? You'd have had like almost live sound artists engaging with your work.
Yeah, no, that was definitely something that was really nice, especially at the opening, because there was there's quite a lot of people there, and people were really churning all the leaves up. And there was also a friend of mine came with her daughter, who was probably about 4 or 5 at the time, and she was kind of very up for like, yeah, lying down in the leaves or kicking the leaves. And yeah, that was like, I think that's quite an important element to the show. But to be honest, thinking about it now, I actually think that that's a quite a good question. And I think it's for anyone making art in a gallery space, is that how you want people to react, to sort of interact with something. And I guess I really don't like that kind of sterile environment where the art is sort of, you know, you're not allowed to touch it, you have to be very respectful of it, and kind of it's all delicate and expensive. But I really sort of try and make things which are as far away as that as possible. And obviously, yeah, when you spent a really long time on a painting, you do want people to not just maybe be a little bit careful with it to some degree, but other than that, I think it's like, no, I think people should definitely, I like things to be kind of inviting in that way, for people to respond how they want to, and things get moved around or moving like kicked around or whatever, it's not a problem.
I mean, I don't know about the other audience members, but you told us a lot about the other piece in Nottingham, but what's the story behind this one?
Yeah, so this one is definitely more kind of, I don't know, I suppose the setting itself was a bit smaller and more kind of intimate, because it had these very inward facing pieces. And I think, yeah, it was basically, there was a similar sort of pieced together narrative to do with this kind of different layers of cycles, of organic cycles or man-made cycles, or kind of emotional kind of cycles or patterns of behavior and things like that, and the seasons and kind of these overlapping things. But this one had these really specific characters that came through in it. So, and some of them were all kind of found characters, where I sort of pieced together these collage narratives, I suppose, using their samples of their voices. But although when I'm speaking about this now, it's actually quite, definitely with this kind of work, it's always difficult to know how much of that to make clear to an audience, because I think with quite immersive work like this, you definitely want people to be able to piece together their own narratives or kind of have their own interpretation, and it not to be too kind of to dictate exactly what's happening and here's the story kind of thing. But yeah, one of the kind of main part of the sound for this one was this, it's like a TED talk with this woman who she held the world record for holding your breath and diving underwater, for any human being for like a really short period of time, which is quite unusual, because normally the world records for any human being are for physical things are normally held by a man. But with her, she held the one for anyone, and then only for a few months before like a male person kind of overtook her record. But it's basically, it's a TED talk that she gave about the experience of breaking this world record and pushing her body to these physical limits. And then she talks about her experience of motherhood and having this other experience of pushing her body to these extreme physical limits. And obviously one experience is totally unique, and one experience is felt by loads and loads of people. So and it was a kind of a new story, I guess, that I took elements of her telling that story and introduced some other characters. So when she was talking about, she talks about when she was going to pass out, and that she had like a devil on her shoulder and then an angel on her shoulder, kind of one telling her to give up and one telling her to kind of keep going and everything would be okay. And so I kind of recorded these characters, which were the angel and the devil, and kind of inserted them into the story, and kind of made the dialogue for them. So it kind of, yeah, added these other characters to the story. So yeah, that was the kind of central part of that story, of the sound side of that piece. But yeah, also,
yeah, really interesting. Oh, I was supposed to see a devil, so that was good.
yeah, that's true. Yeah, those were when the angel and the devil were speaking, there was a projection on either one of those, the big faces. So when you see the photograph with the kind of red light on the one face, that was kind of flashing in time with the spoken devil voice. So it's kind of a sort of crude way of kind of animating the painting. And then the other one with the angel voice with a kind of blue kind of light on it. So it was also with when the projections were in, it was almost like the paintings were kind of speaking to each other, so because they were on the other side of the room. But yeah, it's quite a weird experience just explaining those works in this way, because yeah, it's very difficult to kind of get that across with photographs and stuff.
It's almost like physicalizing them and creating puppets out of them without even needing to, because you just use sound and light from the projections through sheets, and it's such a simple concept, but it's really powerful. Sorry if I'm gushing. I always gush. Joe knows this. As an performance for Joe yesterday. If you ever want a gusher, just call me. But no, it's just it's really nice as well. I think with our audience as well, you know, women and non-binary audience, because you know, you make pieces about women, and I think that's also why I chose you as a masterclass artist, because I don't want to shy away from it, but like, you know, it is harder for women in music and women as sound artists, and you know, also women of color as well. I mean, I'm, you know, but disabled women as well. So I was just wondering if maybe you wanted to just introduce, I don't know if you have one more piece that you could maybe maybe more sound that you could maybe share with us. And then I don't know, like, I actually think we don't need a break, but we could either have a 5-minute break and then have questions, or we could just go straight into sort of questions discussion. Yeah? Does that sound okay?
That sounds great. Yeah, that sounds great. I think, I'm really not sure in terms of the sound. I think the final piece that it makes sense to show, I would say, would probably be, and we can just do this one quickly because it just relates to the other ones. Although unfortunately I don't know, I'll have to I'll have a look into the sound element of it and see.
We could do a very quick 3-minute break if anyone needs the loo or needs a glass of water. So like, let's say 5 minutes, and then everyone comes back, and then by that time Ruth will have found the art. I just put her on the spot. I've done a really bad ADHD thing.
Oh, don't worry, that's fine. Yeah.
So that's a good idea.
So let's all say back in 5 minutes. Okay.
Yeah.
Sounds good. Yeah.
Or Ruth, you could also maybe talk about when you've applied for something, because that could also be.
People still
Yeah, I just thought, I don't know if you could hear me or if you had
oh
the
sorry, I put on the headphones for a second just to find to find the sound piece that I was looking for.
Yeah, I mean, we've actually run out of time, but I just think what you said at the very beginning before everyone joined about that application, I'd like even just like the way you talk about your art, it's really lovely how you kind of what you're searching for or what you want to do. I think that's what maybe disabled musicians, I don't want to generalize too much, but that's what we struggle in sort of the conception of, to be able to ask for some funding or to be able to ask for. And I wonder if, I don't know, it's probably a bit too much of an ask just now, but I think that's what we're probably here. I know that we're all, talented musicians. I know a few of the women in the audience, and I guess it's like we're a bit shy in knowing how to ask for it or research. So that would be, I don't know if you could do that for just 5-10 minutes.
Yeah, no, certainly. Yeah. Definitely. So just to speak a little bit about kind of getting yourself into that position of asking for things, or kind of
especially as women, I think we
yeah
tend to kind of have something, but we don't always have the confidence, I suppose, to kind of like just ask for it.
definitely. I think that's so important to bring up, because it's definitely something that for me as well, it took a long time to get to the place now of being a little bit more confident asking for things, but still, it's still like not, it doesn't come completely easily at all. And it's definitely I definitely agree with what you're saying. And I'm sure also as disabled artists, it's just another barrier to things, or it can be. And I think it's those things that are often the things that people don't talk about as well, in terms of their own work, or how did you get to that point, and what was the actual process of asking for something, or somebody approaching you, and how did you manage that? Or definitely.
What you said about the technician, when you said you spent a lot of money on him, but actually when I was hearing it, it almost sounded like he was your access need. He was your tool to reduce your barriers so that you could make the art. So even if you weren't disabled, and I'm not sure if you are, I've never asked you, but there's that element that as disabled artists, especially women artists, sometimes we're denied really doing more because we have to think of the costs of our access to be able to then put on a show or put on a piece.
I'm sure.
But it would, let's end with that. So it's
definitely.
I think two more, maybe one more minute, because we'll wait for Miss Jackie to come back and Joe, and then I'm asking her lots of questions already, which is probably a bad thing, but I hope it helps everyone. And the time has gone so fast. So
yeah, definitely. I was worried it wasn't going to be enough. I was kind of thinking of I hope this doesn't go really quickly, but yeah.
So in case all of you didn't hear it, I've now asked This is a very typical ADHD brain. I do apologize. I think on the spot and I get very excited on the spot. But I have asked Ruth, she will share some sound at the very, very end. But what I'm going to ask her for actually is something that I really struggle with, which is when I have my idea or project, I don't know how to ask funding body, or I don't know how to kind of ask for money to give me the money so that I can do this project. So she's just going to give a very brief example of a project when she was funded. And if that's not helpful to you, sorry, I guess it's a selfish question of mine, but I do think that a few of us are in the same boat. And so I think it might help all of us. Okay, over to you, Ruth.
Yeah, okay. So just to Eleanor, would you want me to kind of frame this in specific experience that I've had of working with funding, and or would you like me to speak more generally about kind of in my experience how I've kind of got to that achieved those things?
Yeah, I think in your experience, and maybe just, I'm not obviously asking you for the secret, but it would be helpful to sort of know how to frame it, I suppose.
Yeah. I think, I guess, also to be clear, I definitely don't think I'm the kind of an authority on it at all, because I definitely think it's I think I've been successful in making applications, definitely, and I've also been I've also worked with organizations who they've kind of given me a budget or helped me apply for funding sometimes, so that's been really really amazing. But I think basically, Eleanor, what you were saying about I suppose kind of different barriers, or I suppose in a way there's an element of kind of gatekeeping, where I do think that certain people or organizations or whatever can be very sort of they're not always that willing to share knowledge of like in their experience how to get applications, or the certain things that maybe the Arts Council or different funding bodies are looking for. And it does prevent people from having access to these things, even though certain things, for example, the Arts Council, it's supposed to be, very accessible, and they try and make it as available to everyone as possible. But of course it isn't, just because even doing an application is just really hard, and it's quite it can be quite an unpleasant process, because you kind of have to try and view yourself through this imagined eyes of this institution, and it is quite weird. I'd definitely say I'm trying, in my experience, kind of useful things to think about. Definitely the thing I said earlier about with the thing with working with somebody, like with an organization in my hometown, it doesn't only relate to things like that, but it's, I guess for me, it's always been really useful working with people with organizations who might have something, some clear things in common with my practice, or things that I've kind of proven to have done. Definitely this show that I did last autumn in Berlin, which I might play a little bit of the sound from at the end, that was they're an organization that works specifically between kind of sound and performance and music and art, and their identity as a kind of group of curators and organizers, it is already kind of quite outside of the mainstream, but does have a kind of name for itself, and they specifically work at the intersection of different mediums, different genres. And also they specifically work with women and non-binary people, and explore some kind of like queer and feminist themes in what they do. So I knew working with them, it would be a match with what I do. And so I think finding those organizations who who do have something in common with what you're doing, or who you can see these threads that are relevant to what you might do. I definitely think it seems obvious, but I think that's definitely maybe the one thing that I would say it's always worked quite well for me in my experience. Also, I also think you can kind of slightly, I was going to say kind of force those sort of common things, even if they are only there a bit, by just kind of, if you're going to write to somebody or write an application to the Arts Council or to another funding body, if you look down from what their criteria is, or what their kind of their kind of goals, or what they champion as their values, and when you find ones which are common with what you do, you can just really flag those up in an application, or kind of put that right at the forefront, rather than kind of immediately going into it with having your goals at the forefront. You can kind of fit them around what the organization might have as their values, or their the things that they promote. And then once you start working with them, of course, they're always really up for you doing whatever you want, usually, in my experience. So it's kind of, it's more like that's the sort of initial hurdle of, kind of finding that common ground, or, I suppose getting them excited about your work. I think, I'm trying to think of other things. I did write some stuff down earlier, because I remember before you kind of bringing up some really interesting questions about what you kind of do before and after a show, because obviously talking about, yes, this was the process of making the show, it was challenging, and then there was this, and this is the thing. It's actually often the point immediately to getting to that point, or immediately afterwards, when you're kind of like, what do I do now? When am I next going to have a show, or what do I do after a show to make sure that people know that it happened? Or, it's kind of, that stuff is definitely quite important. And also it can be difficult, because often you're really exhausted after you've done something like that, and you're kind of really ready to move on, but actually there's all this sort of stuff to kind of do to tie up all the loose ends. But I think
sorry to grab you, that was so crucial. I think what happens to so many disabled, I'm just going to say women, non-binary, for the sake of our audience here. If I'm saying anything wrong, please, audience, jump in and go, no, I don't identify as women and non-binary, and I will apologize straight away, sorry. But I think again, like, if we talk about the mental load as well, we tend to, after a show, kind of have a burnout. And that can often sometimes prevent us from then keeping up the momentum. So yeah, it's that kind of little thing of, how do we, even in burnout, keep our fingers in some pies as well? Like, how do we do that as disabled artists? Even if it means just maybe sending a newsletter out, or just sending a thank you email, but I really liked today, what's really like you've shown me, and hopefully the audience, is kind of writing to some of the places that excite us and saying, do you remember me? Or do you remember like this? Or when we did this? Or, I went to a show and I really love this, and I would really like to show my piece. This is the kind of work I do. What kind of space could you offer me? And I think that's what it is. It's about asking. So maybe that's how we could end, is like the thing that you said about, as women, asking for things.
Yeah, I think that's really a really good point. And also, I guess, just in response to that, I think one of a really positive experience that I had recently was a collaboration with an artist in Denmark to do a kind of immersive installation, which we were talking about a little bit earlier, Eleanor. But was something where somebody reached out it was another female artist on this occasion actually as well, but she reached out of the blue, and I didn't used to know her, not really well, but I hadn't seen her for maybe about 7 years, and she just sent me a really nice email and said, oh, don't worry if you're not interested, but I'd really like to work with you. I was wondering if you might be up for collaborating. And I think collaboration is, of the things that I've shown today have all been actually solo shows, but obviously you're still working with a lot of people on them. But I think collaboration for me is always a really important thing, even if it's going alongside the things you're doing on your own. And also it's definitely, yeah, just asking if you do want to do something, not being afraid to ask, or suggest a collaboration, or be, you know, kind of think, oh, I really responded to that, you know, would you be up for doing something together? I'd like to see what that might look like. And yeah, because it's also, you do definitely get a kind of burnout especially doing solo things, and then to be able to kind of in between that work with other people, it's kind of, it normally is a more kind of supportive environment, even if that has its own challenges as well, to be doing alongside it.
Muted. Does anyone else have any questions? I realized I hogged the whole thing, and I was actually saying at the beginning anyone can ask, but then I just realized I've been asking all the questions. Hopefully they were some of your questions that just magically went through my mouth. But yeah, if anyone has any questions to ask Ruth or comment.
Yeah, I do. Ruth,
Ooh.
in terms of like ideas, do you have like a notebook where you write stuff down, and like you might go back and like realize that you've got like an idea for a project, or do you just think of a project and go, oh, I'm going to try and get funding for that?
Yeah, so kind of a little bit of both. I definitely have loads of notebooks, and I like to have them for specific things. So one is kind of like pure ideas, and it probably doesn't make sense to anyone else, or it might just be even like a weird phrase, or like a thing like, oh, I'd love to make something with this weird material, or oh, that'd be cool to do that, and just so I don't forget it. And then I have one that's more kind of like notes in a sort of more logical, practical thing, like, or, you know, if I'm writing an application, or I need to do a list of how I'm actually doing something, it goes in that one. But yeah, I think it's a little bit of both, because sometimes if an opportunity comes along and you're kind of thinking, oh, what will I do, then I have that notebook where I can look back and be kind of like, oh wow, maybe this is the time to try and do that idea that I had, which just came out of the blue at this other moment. But yeah, also I think sometimes it's responding to what that place or what that opportunity might offer. So I think thinking about what the resources are like completely differently, and thinking about that really laterally. So, you know, is there lots of people on hand who might be able to help you, or is there a little bit of a budget, or is it a space that's massive, or is it a space that's really small and it's quite unusual space, and then thinking of tailoring it to that side of things, more the kind of material qualities of a space, or what something might be. But yeah, I think in terms of funding stuff, for me, it's either one or the other, where it's kind of either you already started making something, and you've got a couple things in place, you know you're going to be able to do it, and then you think, oh, what I'd really need now is a little bit more substantial support to make sure this is done really well, and then it's, you kind of build up an application around this project that's kind of, you know, is going to be happening. And then the other one would be if you see that there's a kind of call out or an opportunity coming up that's a specific thing, like it's an award, or it's like a grant of some kind, or it's sometimes for shows, they might do a call out where you kind of like, you wouldn't otherwise be doing it, but you're kind of like, oh, it'd be great if I got that thing. So you then kind of tailor it to that. Yeah, and I guess I'd see those things as quite different, because one is something you're doing anyway, and you're like, I want to make sure that that's like the biggest and best thing it can be. And sometimes you're more kind of like, doesn't matter if I'm not doing that, but it would be good to have that support.
Okay.
I hope that makes sense. Yeah, if that makes sense.
If everyone could, oh, sorry, go on. Sorry, Sasha, you go.
Oh, no, I was finished.
Oh, okay. I was just going to say, if you will put your emails in the chat, I've got a few emails already, but Sasha, if you want to put your email, I'm going to write up the notes that I put in the chat in a bit of a easier way to read them, and I'll also put Ruth's website, and then I'll send that to you. And then I'm sure that if you have any other questions that you'd like to ask Ruth directly, is it okay to email you?
That's fine. Yeah, absolutely.
I'm putting you on the spot again. But yeah, then you can always ask questions to her directly. But Ruth, this has been a really fantastic masterclass, and it was really great to hear you talk, as you said, from like one scale to another scale, and also to see the different ways of documenting. I prefer the way where they have a photographer who remembers to take photographs. I often forget to document my work.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. So I don't know if I know that like we're running over like by 6 minutes. Does anyone have time to listen to one last sound piece, or are you all heading off? It's up to you, really.
I can't really go anywhere, so yeah, I'm quite happy to listen to at least one more. Yeah.
Yeah, same here.
Yeah, actually, I had like a really big meeting. I've got to attend. No, it's cool.
Well, yes, absolutely. Then, so if if we end with a sound piece, and then thank you all so much for attending the talk. It's been really lovely to do it as a group. Right, over to you again.
Excellent. Oh, thanks so much. Yeah, thank you so much for inviting me to do this as well. It's been really, really lovely. Also, I just thought, like, in terms of applications and things like that, if there's anywhere I can get together any useful links and things like that, or have a think about any more kind of useful information that I might have, and make that available to people. Because it is a mad process, but there's quite a lot of stuff around, and there's also definitely over the summer there was some organizations where people were offering to read over applications and things, like just give their free time to do it. There was something at Gasworks, and there was some places like that were doing that, so I can definitely send that information over.
I would be interested in that Berlin, the name of that Berlin place.
Definitely, yeah, definitely. I can give you their contact and send their website and stuff as well.
Ooh, okay.
Cool. So I'm just going to play. It's just the end of actually the sound part of the show that I did in Berlin. Actually, if I can find it.
Really nice people, really genuinely nice people. I had a good night. Thanks for all your well wishes. I'm not having a good day at all. It'll soon pass, won't it? Anyway,
hello.
Have a good Saturday. Love you all.
I'm here in my room, and before I make this video, I just want to give everyone a warning that there's some kind of gross things that I'm going to show you. Show you the mucoid plaque that came out of me, and also this video could totally change your life, because it has definitely changed me. So for the past week I've been doing enemas. Actually, it all started with this book. The Mucusless Diet Healing System. It's by Arnold Ehret, but it's annotated by Professor Spira, and I would highly recommend this book. It has lists of them in the book, but like avocado, durian, corn, things like that I've been eating cause mucus, and that mucus, so it's like it doesn't really smell mucoid plaque, which lines your intestines, and it makes it so you can't absorb the nutrients that you're eating. So even though I've been eating really food for the past 2 years, I don't think I've been absorbing all the nutrients because making it difficult because absorb all the nutrients. I've had a layer of mucoid plaque in my intestines. So it's crazy. The way that I've gotten rid of it is I would recommend everyone to learn about it. For the past week, I've been even using lemons, just squeezing lemon in distilled water and using that after I have a bowel every time. So that really helps to clean out your intestines and get rid of. So yes, I truly share that. And also, I was reading on natural colon cleansers, and I've been for the past 4 days using a bentonite clay and psyllium husk like shake, and every morning like an hour before I eat, and every night like an hour after I eat, and an hour before I go to bed. So this is the bentonite clay. You take 1 tablespoon of this and 1 tablespoon of psyllium husk and mix it in water. And it doesn't really have much of a taste. It's not too hard to get down, but it totally is working, and I feel so good. Like I feel so much lighter and clearer. Like I can't believe that I had this stuff inside of me. So I'm gonna show you the mucoid plaque that came out of me, and it's definitely not like normal poop. It's like rubber. It's crazy.
Ever since my first world record, I've aligned myself with different environmental organizations who all work to protect my beloved sea. Finally, for me, it feels like there's a point to this bizarre gift I have of holding my breath. I have the opportunity to pay the sea back. As a child, it had been my playground, a place of escape and protection. And as a freediver, it was the place where I proved myself to myself by traveling to the absolute edge of myself. Up until now, I didn't feel that lending my name or signature or photograph to a campaign was truly enough. I wanted to get my hands dirty. I find myself again utterly outside my own comfort zone. I'm learning on my feet because this is not my field of expertise. As a freediver, a mother, and now a spokesperson for my beloved aquatic second home, I've learned that redefining limits is not about being the best in the world, nor is it about being the best in my world. At this point, it's about being the best for our world. I'm just a girl with really long fins who did something impossible because I wanted to. The journey has, of course, been the reward, and the risks have been worth it. Otherwise, I wouldn't be standing here now. The person who risks nothing, does nothing, has nothing, is nothing, and becomes nothing. He may avoid suffering and sorrow, but he simply cannot learn and feel and change and grow and live and love. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much.
Cool. That's about the end.
Yeah, thank you so much. That was really great. Okay. I'm always bad at endings, so
No.
but thank you very much. And as I said, I'll send an email. I'll do it right now so I don't forget, and I'll include you, Ruth, as well. And then your email will be there if people want to
Definitely.
reply. And don't worry, I won't make your emails public. I'll put you all in BCC, but I'll have Ruth's up there so that you can see hers. And I'll also be emailing you from my personal account, not Drake Music, just because my residency is coming to an end. And just like Ruth said, I'm really open for collaboration as well. So if you ever want to chat with me or send me a message, you're very welcome. Thank you very much for attending this masterclass.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you. That was excellent.
Okay, bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.